Hey, welcome back. Glad you could come back to the newest episode. I think I'm always going to say that too at the top of every episode. Just say, hey, I'm glad you're here. Because you know what I am. I'm glad that you're listening. I'm glad that I'm still doing this. So, glad. Happy, happy, happy. Today is an interesting one. I had a talk with a friend of mine that I've known for 20 years, but in the last 5+ years, we haven't had a lot of contact. We, like, when we first met, and for 10 years plus, we were extremely, extremely close. We were just as juvenile as it sounds, we were best of friends. We did a lot of everything together. It was a constant, always around each other. And then we just lost touch. And we dive into a little bit of that in this episode. But before I play the talk for you, I want to talk a little bit about my own nerves prior to this. I was extremely anxious, and not good anxious, like waiting and anticipation and like excited to see my old friend. It was like anxiety, very close to having a panic attack almost. Not an extreme one, but definitely a light one. So much so, I had to give myself a Xanax about half an hour before he showed up. Usually I use those few and far between. Like, just for extreme circumstances, I'll have a Xanax, because usually I can calm myself down. If I'm feeling anxious, I can get through it. My mind can help me through it. But for some reason, I felt like I needed to self-medicate on that one. And it was crazy. It was very strange. This guy that I don't want to say I grew up with him. I didn't meet him until I was about 19 or 20. But those were some definite formative years for me. And I'm sure other people that were in our group. Because that was the thing. That he was part of this one group of people that they had known each other all through high school. They had been lifelong friends. And I was this guy that kind of met one of them, I guess, wedged myself in. That's how I always felt. I always felt like I was the outsider. I wedged myself in and tried to glom on as much as possible. I was always curious if there was any kind of resentment with that from them to me. But yeah, we talk at length. Actually, this one, as you may have noticed, pushes an hour. This is the big one so far. I believe we may be doing a second part to it at some point. It's pretty interesting. We got into some good stuff. And it was interesting, too, because we've never really discussed stuff like this before, and we mentioned that. But so it's kind of cool. Like, this friend of mine for decades now, our first conversation that included talking about feelings and mental stability and all those kind of interesting things is for something that we're sharing with the world. It makes sense too. I mean, we a lot of the stuff that we did, we shared with the world as well. We made a lot of goofy, drunk videos for the internet, and way back in the early 2000s, and made a few movies together. Yeah. So it seems fitting. Seems very fitting that our first conversation dealing with these issues would be on a podcast. Learned some new stuff about my friend, and I'm glad I did. I really am. And I'm also glad to have him back in my life. Anyway, here's the talk. still small.
Yeah.
We've been friends for a long time, haven't we?
Do you want to recount? Let's see here. What was I? Was 20? 19?
Yeah.
Something like that?
You were, I first met you.
When I came back from Lubbock.
Yeah, at GameStop or Funko Land.
Mm-hmm. I was 20.
Yeah.
Because I remember I would turn 20 when I was in Lubbock, so it was right after that. So it's been 20 years.
You're 40?
Uh-huh.
When'd you turn 40?
September last year.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
Well,
Going to college, failed miserably, came back home, lived with my parents for a while. Actually, my parents were going through a divorce, so I lived with my mom for a while. And then I went over to live with my dad for a while. They kind of did that back and forth thing.
and what? Did you have to deal with anything through that? Like,
Yeah, I struggled to find myself. That was actually one of the things that I realized just recently, because I spent so many years just basically doing what other people expected of me rather than figuring out what it is I wanted to do on my own.
mm-hmm.
So, like, the whole idea of going to college was implanted early on. This is just something you're expected to do. It's like, okay, what am I going to go do when I get there? Just go there, do this. That's your path.
Mm-hmm.
So, went into college with really no idea of what I was going to do with it. I just knew that was what was expected of me. So that was the path I went. And then,
But did you know what you were gonna go for?
I mean, I had a degree picked out, which again was one of those things. Like, I don't know if you remember in high school when you take those little tests and it kind of gives you, it's like a little acuplacer where it places you in a certain field and tells you should do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like I was always real good with math, engineering, science type stuff. And so it told me I should be a computer engineer. And it's like, oh, that sounds good. I'll go do that because that's what my dad kind of did. And so I went in there, and after about the first semester I did that, I took a computer programming class. I hated it. And I was like, there's no way I want to sit at a desk all day long just typing on a computer 8 hours a day writing code. It's just not something I want to do. It doesn't, so I dropped all that, but then I never really picked what am I going to do now instead of that. So that was why college just kind of fell away from me. I gave up on it. Actually, yeah.
Okay.
This is why you record ahead of time.
You want ice?
Is it cold?
Yeah, ice. Yes, it is cold.
No, is the water cold?
It can be. It's probably more room temperature-ish.
That's fine.
Okay.
As long as it's not hot.
Why would I bring you hot water? That's it. This is staying in.
People like hot water.
This is staying in.
People drink hot water all the time. They make tea out of it and coffee.
Yeah, but I mean, just on hand.
You know what? If it's tap water, throw some ice in there. Thought you were going to give me bottled water from the fridge. What kind of savage are you?
Why would it be room temperature in the fridge?
Well, maybe because you just put it in there, so they're not quite cold yet.
Are you fucking with me?
Oh, thank you, sir.
Uh-huh.
We have no chill. That's damn right, dude.
Oh, God, yes, we do. Got ice in there. All right. So.
What are we talking about? Oh, college.
College.
Yeah, so that was just a big bomb out for me. And then once I was done with that, I came home. We started doing all of our thing and hanging out. And I never really found any kind of purpose after that other than just living day to day.
And that was like, you were at Domino's there, right?
Eventually, at some point. Not immediately. It was like, because I tried all kinds of different things before that. But then once I got to Domino's and started, I was making good money doing that. So I just kept doing it. Did that for many years. So
okay, so that was when you say you just recently like kind of figured out what path you wanted to take, or?
Well, another thing I realized is that I never really spent a lot of time alone, and that was kind of one of the reasons why I never really found what it is that I wanted to do with myself and with my time. I was always with somebody doing what they were doing. I was a follower. I was never really a leader. So yeah, anyone I was hanging out with, anyone I was dating, whatever they were doing, that's what I was going and doing as well. So it never really mattered what I wanted as long as I was happy, as long as I was doing something.
Okay.
And
that's interesting. So something I was going to bring up to talk to you about is how like through most of the time that I've known you, it's been you're neutral.
Mm-hmm.
And you go with the flow almost to a fault. And apparently,
because I conditioned myself to do that over all the years. That was just what I did. I just went with the flow.
You had no idea why. You just did it. Just because. Why not?
Because it gave me something to do. It gave me a path. It gave me somewhere to go. And rather than trying to sit back and figure out for myself what is it that I'm going to go do, I just find somebody who's already doing something, just go follow them and help them do that.
Hmm.
But then these last few years, all this I kind of put myself in this little intentional solitude, kind of study myself and figure out, okay, what is it that I like? What is it that I want to do? Where do I want to go with my life? I mean, I'm 40 now. Half of my life is over. What am I going to do with the second half of my life? And so that's kind of the stage that I found myself in, where it's just this self-discovery kind of phase of
Are you still in that phase, or have you figured anything out?
I think I've still somewhat in that phase, but I have figured a lot of shit out.
What are you feeling?
I don't know, man. I might have to refer to my notes.
That's fine.
Because that's what a lot of this notebook is just me just sitting around writing shit out when I start thinking about it, trying to figure out who I am, what I like. I like the idea of being a leader and finding something that I would be good at, and not so much finding followers, but finding people who need help and helping them in ways that I know how. Thought about being a teacher or a professor or something like that, going to school, maybe teach math or something like that, or science. But I'm also a very physical person. I like being active, so I can't just sit around and do nothing. So if I'm going to go find something to do, it needs to be physical.
Gym teacher.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I thought it was a good idea. You're active, and you can incorporate math into it, so you can have that aspect.
Well, I also don't want to teach kids.
Oh, okay.
When I say teaching, I mean like teaching adults. I want to teach people who want to be taught.
Oh, okay.
And who are actually coming to you and looking for help and advice, not really, I don't know. Because I was married to a teacher, and I have friends who are teachers, so I know.
Oh, I didn't know she was a teacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I didn't know much about her.
Yeah, not a lot of people did.
Yeah.
But again, that's my fault. That was another thing. It's like a lot of the self-reflection, you kind of look back on yourself and all the things that you've been doing over these years, and a lot of your little idiosyncrasies, and you kind of learn your faults and you learn your strengths. And then once you can do that, you identify what those faults are, then you can start picking at them and start trying to manipulate them, change them to get out of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were talking about, we've never really had conversations like this before because I've never really had these kinds of conversations with anybody. And I think that was one of the things that kind of led to, the dissolution of my marriage, was the fact that I was very involved with the whole process. I was a follower, like I was saying. So it was up to her to decide, what are we going to do with our life? What are we going to do with our family? And eventually, after me just failing to input all my thoughts, it just kind of fell apart.
She got tired of
being the one, always making decisions, always doing the disciplining of the children, always making our, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go?
So you just literally had no opinion on what to do?
For a lot of it, yeah. Well, it's not that I didn't have opinions. It's just her opinions were so much stronger that I didn't want to cause any kind of rift. And so I would just say, well, you make the decision. We'll do whatever you want to do. I had ideas of what I wanted to do. It wasn't as important to me to do those things as it was for her to do the things she wanted. So
do you think it's because you didn't feel important? Did you not feel like you were valid, like your opinion was valid enough in the decision making, or you just didn't feel like it was worth starting any kind of argument?
I didn't even think about it at first as an argument. It became argumentative. Mm-hmm. But at first, I just didn't really care. Like I said, I didn't really have any sense of who I was and what I wanted to do. And so I would just go along with whatever it is that she wanted to do. But then when she would run out of ideas or she would get tired of making the decisions, she would be looking to me to make decisions, and I would have no idea what to say because I'd never spoken up before. I never really had to be the one to make the decisions before, so I had no idea what to do. I would start stumbling around trying to come up with ideas, mm-hmm. And then when I couldn't come up with anything, then it would start causing arguments and fights. And then I would come up with things that maybe she didn't want to do. It's like, okay, well, then that would cause a fight because then I'm like, well, then you figure something out, rather than trying to figure out something else to do. I don't know. It was very complicated, and it all stemmed from the fact that I just really had no desire to make any kind of decision with our lives.
Do you think it's because you didn't care about the life that you had with her, or is it?
I think I was just, I don't know. It's like I was a robot, just like going through my little routine every day. I didn't really care one way or the other whether it worked or not.
Were you unhappy?
At times, but that was really more with just, I think you mentioned it before, like the day-to-day grind of just nothing ever changes. Everything's just the mm-hmm. same all day long. At some point, you get complacent with it, and your emotions just kind of check out, and you're on this automatic pilot mode. And then you kind of get punched or something out of that. It's like once you get in that mode, something drastic has to happen to get you out of that mode.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you recognize you're in it, which I just never really recognized that I was in that mode.
That's wild, man. Like for me, whenever I realize that kind of stuff, I think I mentioned this before, like I have a kind of a small panic attack, realizing like this is tomorrow's going to be exactly the same. I'm going to have to get up and go through this entire routine, and it freaks me out. I don't know why it freaks me out, but it just did. It just does. I was freaked out before coming here. I had to take a Xanax before you coming over.
Just because of this?
Just because of this, yeah. And because I hadn't seen you in so long.
So do you think it was more like just the distance, the fact that it's been so long that like if we were still hanging out on a regular basis, do you think you would still be that anxious about us getting together and talking?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not the talk. It's the reunion.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's happening over a podcast.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everything's out there. I'll throw it out there.
I'll throw my shit out there too. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I look at it is I'll throw anything out there, and I'll be completely honest with whoever wants to listen to this, and if it helps me in some kind of weird catharsis, then cool. If it helps somebody else realize something, then even better.
And that's part of the recovery process. That's how you recover from things, is by putting yourself out there and getting information back, and just kind of, I don't know, because you're going to get good information, you're going to get bad information, and just, the good information will influence you to keep following along that same train of thought. It's like, okay, this is benefiting me, let's keep doing this. And if you're getting bad reactions, it's okay, let's stop doing that, it's not working. But yeah, you're not going to know until you put that information out there and see what you get back from it.
Yeah.
And that was what I've recently starting to try to get into anyway, trying to be more vocal, talking to people more about what's going on with me, inside me, rather than that was the other thing that a lot of people used to tell me, is like, we never knew what's going on in your mind because you don't talk to people. You don't ever really communicate your thoughts.
You didn't think that was because you felt like you weren't important?
Well, and that's been me my whole life. Like that, even as a child, I was like that.
You were like that, not that you didn't feel important.
Yeah.
I just
didn't
that
talk.
doesn't factor in for you.
No, and we used to joke about it. It's like my brother was very talkative, always always talking. And so we used to joke that was the reason why I was so quiet, is because I could never get a damn word in, because he was always talking all the time. But, he always had the opportunity to talk because I was just always so quiet. Maybe he was just, the quiet was bugging him so much that he just had to fill up the quiet with noise, and that's why he started talking all the time. So maybe my silence is the reason why he's as talkative as he is, because he was just feeding off of me, trying to get my attention. I don't know, but yeah, I've always been like that for as long as I can remember, to where I just kind of shut out and zone out and just get lost in my own little world and don't even communicate with the people around me.
Interesting, because that was one thing I wanted to talk about too. Is I just kind of assumed that because you went along with so much, it didn't occur to me that you were a follower, because I always looked at you as an equal. So to think of you as a follower would think that you're subordinate, which I never thought of that. I always thought that, my best friend, you're an equal. You're not below me. I'm not leading anything here. We're doing this together. I was always curious if you were like compartmentalizing things, because I wrote this down because I was thinking about it. The only time that I've actually ever seen you angry, you were furious, and that's whenever I don't even remember that dog's name, but the dog attacked Lucas. That was the only time, and I can remember that vividly.
Yeah, I remember that too.
It was weirdly traumatic for me, because I'm seeing you act like that. And I mean, that was what, 2000, 2001?
It was, something around there. Yeah, there have been very few instances. I was actually talking this with my daughter earlier today. She was, about how I just don't get angry. It takes a lot to get me angry. And like conversational wise, I can sit here and I can talk to anybody, and you can say anything you want to me, and I will never get upset about what you say. The only time that I'll ever get angry at somebody is if they start acting angrily towards me, for no reason. Because it's like that anger feeds off of anger. But if there's no anger coming towards me, then I usually don't respond. That's the only time I'll really respond in anger. Or out of self-defense, like that dog attacking Lucas, like if something were to happen towards my kids or something like that, then definitely that would make me angry. But
I think that goes without question with anybody. It's very that's just very primal instinct type of thing. You're gonna defend who you love. I was just, whenever I thought about it, I was kind of worried, just thinking like, so what does he do? Does he go in the backyard and punch a tree? Like, how does he has to get some of this shit out, or is he just, is it never registering?
I think it just doesn't come out. Like there are moments when I feel anger, and I'll feel it inside, but they don't last long. They're really quick little spurts, and I'm usually really good about controlling it, just sitting back and just like holding my breath or whatever, and just whatever you got to do. Sometimes your body will tense up, just kind of but then after a few seconds, it'll just kind of go away, and that anger just washes over, and it's just gone.
That's wild, man.
It's never bottled up. It's never one of those things that later on it just comes out full force. I've heard people say that about themselves, that if they bottle up that anger, then it just comes out one day and just
yeah.
And there are sometimes you get road rage or something, and shit happens on the road, and people piss you off, and they're like, fuck you, something like that. That's pretty common, but
once I got it stuck on my head that whenever I yell at somebody from inside my car, especially with a closed window and their windows are closed, that it seems silly. I stopped doing that, and so now, and I taught the kids this because obviously I probably shouldn't be flipping people off from the car with the kids in the car. I always give people thumbs up on the road.
Yeah,
I'm just like, have a nice day.
Or just
and I feel
drive by and wave at them if they piss you off. And just kill them.
I give them a thumbs up because like you kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
So you do that, and I took a little bit of comfort knowing that that's going to piss them off more.
Yeah,
that they didn't get to me, and I'm fucking with them, but.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of something you get as you get older too. Just the more you kind of deal with the road rage incident, like throughout your life. Like when you're younger, obviously you get a lot more angry, and as you get older, you've been dealing with it for 20 years. You've been driving on the road for almost 25 years now, and it gives you more satisfaction that they're angry than it does
than you getting your point across or acting like trying to be right about whatever.
Yeah, I'll be doing 75 miles an hour in a fast lane, and it says 65 is the speed limit. I was like, all right, and people are riding your ass, and you're just like I'm doing 10 miles over the limit. I'm going fast enough, and you can tell they're frustrated because they want to go around you, and just like, go around me then,
With me, if it's 65 and they start riding my ass and I'm going 75, then all of a sudden I'm going 55.
Yeah, you're going to slow down.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I do it, and they hate it. Like, there's some roads, like if it's 45 and they're like trying to get around me and I'm doing 45, maybe pushing 50, I'll slow down to 25 with no problem. I'm surprised I haven't gotten shot.
No, I mean, I don't go out of my way to intentionally piss people off on the road, but I'm not going to get out of their way either if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you want to go break the law, then go, by all means, do it. I'm not going to sit here and instigate it, though.
Right.
And help you out.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, it's like my mental block, why I shut down. This is what used to cause it. It's like conflicts of interest, whenever... Like, I hated getting into confrontations. I would freeze up in confrontations. So, especially...
Like paralyzed? Like...
Yeah, almost like a paralyzing. This is...
And was it fear-based, or...?
No, I don't think so, because I wasn't afraid, but it was just like, I guess it was fear-based kind of in a way, because I was afraid of the outcome. So, if I was in an argument with somebody, and I made my point, the other person made their point, and we just didn't agree, and then the other person started getting angry, then I'm not going to keep talking because we've made our points. Now, if I keep talking, all I'm going to do is make that person even more mad.
Right.
So I just stop talking and I just leave it alone. But then the fact that you're not talking about it anymore just makes that other person even more mad. Because now they want to get to the meat of this. They want to figure out why we're having this argument, why we're having this disagreement.
That's what I do. Like, if there's no resolution, I flip out.
I don't flip out. I just say, okay, well, there's not going to be a resolution, so that's it.
Right.
And there's really nothing else to say. But if I'm in that situation where that other person's still pressing and pressing, trying to get me to, they're trying to convince me of their point of view, even though I've made it well known that I don't agree, and I'm not going to agree. Mm. So you can sit here and you keep telling me all you want, but if I've got my mind made up, then I'm not going to change it. So I just stop talking about it. But there are some situations where if I sense the confrontation coming before I even say anything, and I know that nothing I say is going to make it better, I just won't say anything. But there have been times when I've wanted to say stuff, and I can't. And that's where the physical thing comes in. I don't know what causes that. That's something I still think about it and try to figure out what it is, because it's like my mouth will open and the words are trying to come out, but I'm physically paralyzed. Nothing is coming out. Sometimes I can't even move. Like, I'll be sitting there and my whole body is just tense, and I'm just sitting here just like this, my mouth wide open. I was
And what emotion are you feeling?
all kinds of emotions. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's all these conflicting thoughts and emotions in my head, and I can't just wrap around what it is I want to say, and that's why nothing's coming out, because my mind can't figure out what it wants to say. And that happens a lot of times in confrontations within relationships. And I think that's mainly to do that fear of damaging the relationship. So if it's like, I probably wouldn't ever get in that situation with you because we're just friends. We're not in kind of like an intimate type of relationship where I would fear losing you.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of losing you because
you've already lost me.
Yeah, we're going to be friends for life. I already know that. But yeah, if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I'm afraid that this argument that we're about to have could damage the relationship, then yeah, I lock up because I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to take the situation and make it to where we can both be happy from it.
So do you feel like every argument that you had could potentially be the end of a relationship?
Not really. It really depended on the subject matter. So there were some arguments that I knew, no matter what I said, no matter what she was thinking, the relationship's not going to be damaged because of what this argument is about. But then there were other arguments that as soon as the subject matter comes up, I know immediately if I don't play my cards right on this argument, this could lead to a breakup. Just like that. Just this one topic. And if that's the case, then yeah, those are those instances that I'll freeze up and I just won't even talk about it. Because a lot of times in those scenarios, everybody kind of goes away to their respective corners and then calms down. And then, a couple hours later, it's like, things aren't great, but they're back to being good enough that y'all can start talking to each other and be around each other again. So I just kind of sit it out and wait it out for those things to pass. But then after you do that so many times, especially with the same thing over and over and over again, eventually the other person is tired of it.
Sometimes they just want you to yell at them.
Yeah, they just want to get this situation resolved. They've been dealing with it for years, and there's never been any kind of resolution to it. And by the looks of it, there's never going to be a resolution to it. So they just get tired of it and they move on.
With your last marriage, a lot of it had to do with just like the shutdown and the
lack of communication.
Yeah, that's huge. That's really huge.
And that's like the number one thing of a marriage is that you have to be able to communicate with that other person. If you can't communicate, then yeah, the relationship's not going to last.
Yeah, that was an issue that I faced, was communicating the wrong stuff, saying the wrong things, and just being an asshole.
Yeah, and I think that was my big point on here I was trying to make, is like managing those multiple thought processes, because I get those ideas in my head where I'm trying to figure something out, and a lot of times you have to think about it, I think that's my other problem is I overthink. So whenever a situation comes up, I'll sit and I'll think about scenarios. Okay, if this happens, then this is going to happen. If this happens, this will happen. And so I got all these scenarios in my head about what this saying this is going to do, and I can't make a decision on what to say because I'm afraid of one of those situations.
All these alternate timelines. Man, that's pretty heavy, man. Just having to sit there, that conflict with every kind of argument that you would have, that is that dire that you have to, your brain actually throws down a branch.
Yeah, and that's it's like I need to figure out a way to relax to the point where I can just openly just let my thoughts come out. And when you get to that point, like there are some people that I can talk to that I have no problem doing that with. And then there are people that I'm very guarded with what I say. But if I'm comfortable, if I'm relaxed with you, then I can sit here and just let my thoughts go, and because I'm not worried, I guess, about the outcome. Oh, and sometimes it's insecurity, lack of confidence. There have been a lot of times in my life when I've lacked confidence, but I've been actually kind of like what you were saying earlier, just very down on myself. Like I didn't feel like I was good enough. I didn't feel that I was worthy of...
Why do you think that you felt that way?
Because I never really achieved anything, and that's kind of like where I kind of I don't know, it's like you have these goals, you have these ideas in your mind of what you're going to do with your life. Maybe you have these expectations that you put on yourself, or maybe they're expectations that other people put on you, but either way, you're trying to live up to a certain expectation. And if you don't live up to that expectation, then you start looking down on yourself. You start feeling like you're worthless, like you don't deserve any of the good things that are coming because you haven't done anything to earn it. I don't really know when that started or why that started. But
you said you felt that way in childhood, right?
Yeah, but like it's not like I had like a bad childhood or anything damaging in my childhood.
You were firstborn.
I was the firstborn, but like I was never really held to unreasonable expectations that I failed to perform on or anything like that. I don't know why.
So you think any of the expectations that you had were self-imposed?
Yeah, I feel like I did set those expectations myself, but then I don't know if it's just the way my mind works, but it's like, let's say it's a grand it's this big long thing that I want to do, this great achievement that I'm striving for. The smaller the achievement is, the easier it is for me to wrap my hand around accomplishing.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do simple tasks all day long and feel great about them. But you give me a bigger project to do, and I'll sit there and I'll overthink it in my mind. And when you get halfway through it, I'm so overwhelmed by everything that's involved in this task that it just kind of drains me. And
When you say a task like that, would it be like if the house is a wreck, cleaning the house?
yeah, cleaning the house is like a simple task. So that's something that
Like the entire house, and like looking at it and going.
yeah. Well, I do that daily. So it's
okay.
like I don't know if I would say I'm OCD kind of cleaner kind of thing, but I do. I keep it tidy. I keep it clean so that when it does get dirty, it's just a quick little 30
You're
minutes,
able
an
to see
hour
it
long
and go.
job. Yeah, and I can knock it out real quick. But simple stuff like that I can do all day long with no problem. Give me a project like right now I'm remodeling the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, big project, lots of money, lots of time kind of thing. You get about halfway through the project and all of a sudden the whole task becomes daunting. And now I'm overwhelmed with all this stuff that needs to happen now to get this project done. And that if I don't get that project done, or if when I get it done, it doesn't come out the way that I hoped it would,
Mm-hmm.
then I start feeling depressed and sad about myself because I just feel like I'm a failure. Like I tried to do this thing, I tried to succeed in it, and I utterly failed in it. And now it just spirals into this depression state where I don't know.
You've convinced yourself that you failed without even starting.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of those tasks I won't even start on because I know if I try it, I'm just going to fail at it, so why even bother starting?
Do you feel that's like, because I know that you love to write,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that's why you haven't written anything like substantially long, like any kind of huge project?
Maybe, because I did start a couple projects or novels that I wanted to write. But I think I just got into the whole writing process. Like, I enjoy the writing process in bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like sitting in one spot for hours and hours on end and just doing one thing. Even if it's something I love,
Mm-hmm.
I need to break it up. I need to get up and go do something else for a while. And then I'll do that for a while, and then I've got to leave that and go do something else. It's like I can't sit and focus on one task for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do, then after so long, I just get so tired of it or bored with it that I just have to move on. And then that task, I never go back to it. And that happens a lot. And so, yeah, when throughout my life, as I've had multiple of these things just happen, yeah, you look back on it, you're like, well, I tried to do that, failed at that, tried to do that, failed at that, tried to do that. And you get this very bad feeling about yourself that you're never going to do anything substantial with your life.
Or even complete anything that you start.
Yeah.
I can see that. I think that's why it was like really important to me whenever we moved to North Carolina, and I was like, I got to make a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wanted to do it because I was surrounded by people that just talked about doing it, and I was like, I want to do this. Following it through, even though the outcome was less than desired,
Yeah.
it was good to get that to completion. So maybe.
Yeah, because you get some sort of sense of accomplishment by finishing it.
Yeah.
And that
Or
was
at
my
least
goal.
relief.
Yeah, yeah. So if I could never actually finish it and accomplish it, then you never get that satisfaction from it.
Mm.
And so there have been very few things that I've actually felt satisfied about accomplishing. But there have been things, and so I guess that's the thing you need to train yourself to do. Is that as you look back and you kind of look at those, it's okay. Well, I did accomplish that. I do have accomplishments. I do have good things in my life and good things that I've done in my life. You can't focus on all those negative things that you've never finished because everybody has that. Everybody starts things and then either it doesn't turn out the way they planned or whatever, they get tired of it and they just move on. I don't think that's specifically me
Mm-hmm.
that has that kind of issue, but which is one reason I guess why you're doing this whole thing, to let people know you're not alone. Does recognition play anything to you?
Like somebody saying "great job."
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
So if you don't ever get that recognition, do you think that would affect your mental state to the point where it would lead to your depression?
I see that. I don't know. I know for a fact that it leads to how I view people.
Like on an individual level for them, like
Yeah.
if you do something that you feel like you should be recognized for and they don't recognize it and you see them poorly, like you look down on them a little bit?
No, not look down, but definitely like maybe I feel entitled to have had some kind of recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And I might hold a little bit of resentment for a brief amount of time. It's nothing that's long standing. It's not like they lose half a star on their Uber people rating, but it is a fleeting.
Well, I guess then it's going to make you think twice about going to them for recognition in the future. So,
How can you help it if it's a parent?
one thing I've learned, especially like friends and family and stuff like that, everybody, like you choose the people that you want to be in your life. And even if they are close to you, their being in your life is conditional. So you could have a parent or a sibling or a friend who, for whatever reason, you have to ask yourself, why is this person in my life? What am I getting from that relationship? And if what you're getting is good and you like it, you enjoy it, then you'll find ways to keep that relationship going. But if having that person in your life is causing you nothing but pain, and all you're doing is just resenting them for everything they do, then at one point you just got to cut them out of your life and say, I don't need this.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they feel the same way, if they feel like, well, no, I really want you to be in my life, then they're going to find ways to make you happy with them so that they can stay in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, eventually, if it's that bad, then you just have to cut that person out and say, I can't do this anymore. Too much of my mental energies is focused on trying to get your acceptance, and you're not giving it to me. So it's causing me anguish.
Your level of acceptance and recognition right now that you're speaking on is a very much not a permanent basis, but a more long-term basis. Where I was whenever we first started talking about it, I thought you were talking about kind of like a gold star type of thing, where it's like, oh man, great job doing the dishes.
Well, yeah, you could break it down that simple if you want, but like when I think recognition, I mean like, yeah, just from people, like my children recognize me.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I do things for them, they glow, and you can just see it on their faces. And it's like,
do stuff for them like.
Just simple stuff. Just say hi to them, talk to them, ask them about their day, kind of thing. And it's like, and I've noticed that especially with the younger kids, the more you talk to them, the more they are just like you were their world.
Yeah.
All you have to do is interact with them. You don't have to do it much.
You just have to be interested in their universe.
Yeah, just kind of be interested in what's going on in their mind, and they'll sit there and they'll tell you everything that's going on in their mind, and they love every second of it. So I easily get recognition from my children as long as I'm engaged with them.
Were you like that with the middle child?
Yeah, probably most.
Was that more of the learning process there, figuring it out?
Well, it's different with every child, I guess. And the longer you're a parent, the more you learn those children, that you get better as a parent as the years go on. And then the more children you have, those younger children, that you're going to do better with them because you've already experienced everything with the older children. You've already gone through all those trials and errors to where it's a lot easier now with these younger children than it was with those older children.
Well, I know of 3 kids. You still have just 3, right?
3 kids, 2 stepkids if you want to count them, because I'm still very involved in their lives as well.
Okay.
Think of them as my children too.
Okay.
But yeah, and the age range from little kids all the way up to early 20s. It's a good range of children that I have.
And
the best recognition I get is from my children, and probably close friends and family. But if I start seeking recognition, like from work for things that I do, like at my job, I don't really seek it as much from work because I don't care so much.
Yeah, I can understand that for sure. Because they're not as personally involved in your life. They're not on that level. Mm-hmm. If they get fired the next day, they'll be replaced with the same type. So what do you need that personal level recognition from them? So
yeah, well, you don't need it from them. But if you're the kind of individual who doesn't get recognition, like you have your friends and family, but they don't really pay attention to you. They don't really see the things that you do, and then you can kind of feel upset about that and depressed about it, and it could, it affects the way you view yourself.
Yeah.
And make you feel really down about yourself. And so.
Do you get that a lot?
I don't think so, not anymore. I mean, I've got a pretty good close group of friends and family who respond very well to me. So
what about like spouses?
Yeah, I don't really think that was a problem so much.
You felt that they gave you the recognition
that
you felt you deserved.
Yeah, but I mean, I think over time that started to erode, but that was just because the relationship was eroding. Mm-hmm. So I don't blame the relationship failing on their failure to recognize. I think that was just another one of the side effects of the marriage failing, is why all that stuff started to happen. So I don't know. When it comes to those types of relationships, it's way too convoluted to even really pin it on one particular thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could probably list 20 or 30 scenarios of what broke those relationships up. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it was a snowball effect. It started with one thing and then added this thing, and it just started.
How long was the last one were y'all married for?
5 years.
And you guys knew each other like years and years ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were friends.
I thought y'all dated.
As a teenager. Not really. Like, there was you could tell there was like this connection, like something could have happened, but then I went off to college and she stayed at home, and we just kind of lost touch, and then it was like 10, 12 years later when we finally saw each other again the next time. Then just kind of rehashed all that. I guess that kind of nostalgia feel, you look back on it, it's like, oh, what could have happened back then if we had actually gotten together, And so you decide to go visit and see what would happen, and that was what started it, what brought it back together.
Okay. Yeah, because I know I always, I don't know if it's the same for you, but like I pinpointed where that major life change is whenever I left for North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever I came back, everything was different.
Mm-hmm.
The dynamic was different with everyone.
Did you blame yourself for leaving, for changing that dynamic?
No,
or was it just...
because I think that was a gradual evolution of what's going to happen in life.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been anybody if any one of you guys had been like, well, we're going to go this way. And for me too,
Mm-hmm.
with the particular group, like looking back on it too, I keep convincing myself that I was this outsider because
Mm-hmm.
you guys were all high school buds.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of forced myself into the group, and so I always feel bad about that, and so I don't feel like I was.
No, I wouldn't be worried about that because I don't think that was any concern that you were hijacking the group or forcing yourself in. I think that you were welcome with open arms into the group. So, but yeah, that dynamic between us, the other guys were already there because we had been together for so long.
Yeah.
I don't know what changed when you got back.
Well, okay, it went from it was the big change, of course, was the birth of my first son in North Carolina. So we came back, and I came back a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And before we left, that was staying up late watching Angel reruns, stuff like that, just hanging out with you and dicking around, making videos, and just general shenanigans. It was still, being unattached and doing whatever, and then coming back, it had changed.
Coming back basically as now you're a parent. Now you're basically in a marriage type relationship. And then what was I doing at the time? I don't even remember. God.
I don't remember either. I know whenever we came back, hung out a lot at Josh's place and hung out in your garage a lot.
Yeah, we did get back into because we made the movie not long after that, and we tried to make the Garage Fever movie too.
That's right.
So we still did some stuff after that where we tried to.
So then it wasn't that then.
Yeah, it wasn't right after you.
I mean, of course, we weren't hanging out every day. Like we saw each other every day prior to the move.
Well, we lived together, so we kind of had to.
Yeah, but I mean, even it was kind of a real sitcom situation where anybody could just walk in at any time. It was a very pop-in lifestyle.
Yeah.
And of course that all changed. But yeah, you're right. Whenever we came back, we still tried to do stuff, and we did stuff.
Yeah, but and I had kids too, and then got married myself, and then other people, they start having kids and move. Eventually, everybody just moves off and starts doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Especially if you got families, because that family unit becomes more important than anything else. So you start focusing more energy on that. Especially if the kids start getting older and they start paying more attention to what's going on around the house and what you're doing, and they start demanding more of your time, more of your attention. But then eventually, those kids will grow up and move on, and then you got all that time and attention. You got it back to yourself to start focusing on your things again. Mm-hmm. So it's just a cycle of life, I guess, that we all go through. Did that lead to any kind of depression for you?
No.
Those kind of situations?
No. Even the realization for a second, understanding the mentality of our friend that loves Pearl Jam.
Mm-hmm. He still loves Pearl Jam.
I'm sure he does. I got a gift for him. But yeah, understanding his mentality of wanting to keep everything the same. I feel like if he could he could keep it all on ice. Mm-hmm. There's that one.
It's like there's a moment in time that he wants to freeze and live in that moment.
He wants to Groundhog Day that, whatever special day he had then, where everybody was together and happy.
Because that's when he was the happiest. Those were his golden days, and he wants to maintain that. And I understand it.
I understand it. I understood it briefly, but then also, I mean, there's so much good with learning and evolving as a person and becoming a different person. I'm a completely different person than I was. Mm-hmm. I mean, whenever we first met, I was running around like a jackass, yelling at nothing and just looking to get reactions from anybody.
Yeah.
And I still did that for a long time. Mm-hmm. But now, I'm under for instance, here we go. Here's a good example. I was at the store a couple weeks ago and I noticed this guy, I still have the thoughts. I had this guy that was picking up some water bottles. He was shopping for some water, and he had gloves on and a face mask. because the allergies and stuff like that were around. Some people
Yeah.
are a little bit more careful. Well, he went to go grab a bundle of waters, and some of the bottles fell on the floor, and rolled up to my foot. So I picked them up, put them back on the shelf for him, and he looked at me, and he goes, "Thank you. That means so much to me.
Mm-hmm.
That helped me out so much." And I thought about it because my first reaction to seeing him with the gloves and the mask and I'm behind him, was to just start coughing really loud and just kind of fucking with him. And then I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. And then that happened, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. So it's like two completely opposite things that could have happened in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you could have upset him, hurt his feelings, whatever, and he probably would have run out crying. Or you could have helped him and made his day and made him feel great.
Yeah.
And you chose the other one.
Which, I mean, me 15, 20 years ago would have been like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm going to screw with them. They'll get over it eventually. That was my mentality, was everybody will get over whatever. It's just, who cares? It's just, people will get over stuff. But as you get older, you realize, no. And everybody, that's what I'm teaching too, as he's starting to communicate on the internet, that these aren't just pictures. They're not just words that people are posting. These are people.
Yeah.
These are people with emotions, lives, everything else. So just choose carefully.
Yeah, because anything you do could affect them emotionally in some way, and you don't know what's going to trigger them, send them down a path, where that path's going to go. So, yeah, you just be mindful of other people and their feelings.
It took me that long to figure it out, too.
Yeah. Well, I sit around and think about when I do my self-reflection, and I was like, why did it take me so long to just analyze myself and just figure out what is it, the things that I don't like about myself, and how do I fix these? How do I make myself better?
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought about it when I was young, about making myself better. You think about making yourself better by, going to the gym or something like that. It's like
getting a new pair of shoes.
Yeah, getting a
how
new
you
outfit.
appear to other people.
Yeah, it's more about your appearance and not so much about your mindset.
Yeah.
How you think and how you live. So, yeah.
And the mind's a crazy fucking thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the more, whenever I was going through counseling and stuff and just, learning more and more about how it works, what's going on there, it was crazy.
Mm.
I had no idea there was so much, of course, it seems stupid to say I had no idea it had so much control over me, but it's your fucking brain.
It controls everything.
It controls everything.
Controls, your thoughts, your actions, your motor skills. People take it for granted.
You could shut yourself down if you convince yourself to. Just people are dying in their dreams because they convince themselves that whatever's happening is real.
Yeah, but with that same mindset, could you not also say that if you actually use your mind, you could solve anything? You could fix anything. Anything that you know about yourself is wrong.
Put your mind to it.
If you put your mind to it, you can figure it out. You can solve it. So, like your friend was saying the other day, that you think you could fix yourself. He's a big proponent of fixing yourself. Well, you have the power to fix yourself. You just have to figure out how.
Right.
You just have to put your mind to it, and think about it, and figure out how am I going to fix myself. I don't know. Maybe some people have a hard time doing that. I know I did up until recently.
You'd have to mentally learn how to balance a bunch of different chemicals and stuff that's going on inside of you that kind of sabotages you.
Yeah, it's a lot about concentration.
Yeah.
You have to concentrate on it. Like, if you find yourself being distracted, maybe that's why I was never really able to do it until now. It's because I was always distracted by something. I was always following somebody else, so my mind was always focused on other people and what they were doing. I never really focused on me and what I was doing and what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you have all this time, this little self-solitude that I put myself in to kind of work on myself, yeah, I've been able to do that. I've been able to pinpoint those things, work on them.
That's great, though.
Yeah.
That's
I'm enjoying it. I've gotten a lot of benefits out of it, I think.
It made me really sad whenever I found out, because it never dawned on me. It was kind of for the first few years that I knew you, it took one person mentioning you had a lisp for me to realize you have a lisp.
Yeah.
The same thing with another old friend of ours. I never looked at him as being fat until somebody started making fat jokes at him, and I'm like, I just didn't see those things for some reason.
Yeah. Well, it's because you weren't looking at those kinds of things. You were looking more at the person themselves and what they were doing and what they meant to you, I guess.
I guess, yeah. I felt really sad with one interaction we had. I think I can't remember what we were doing, but I know towards the last times that we were hanging out in the garage at your old house, I was putting a lot of pressure on trying to figure out, let's make a video, let's do that, because I was really trying to grasp at that, like, let's go back a few years. And I can't remember if it was you or shit.
It's like the second time you said his name now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You said it earlier too. I didn't say anything, but it's fine.
I know I said the old kid's name.
Yeah.
We're in your garage, and I don't remember if it was you or the other friend that said it, but somebody mentioned that all we ever did was what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was controlling the stuff that we were doing, and it made me feel really bad. Do you remember that?
I don't remember it, but I believe it probably would have been the other person because I don't know.
I can't remember because you know what? No.
I mean, with you reminding me of it, it's like I had this.
I don't think it was like a confrontation where there was no anger. Yeah. I think it was more of a, this has never happened. And it made me realize it, and I don't know that the intention was to make me feel bad about it, but I did, and it like really resonated with me. It's one of those weird things where something so small resonates big. So
there was our friend was telling me this the other day when we were talking. Yeah, I guess there was one point after I'd gotten married when we were having a get-together, and he was over there hanging out. And it was one of those family get-togethers. And I don't remember the conversation. I have no memory of this, but he said it happened that we were talking, and at one point I told him that he needed to get a life because, like I was married, had my kids, had a good job, all this stuff, and he was just still this single person who was like struggling to get by kind of thing, and just... he wasn't doing much with his life, and so I told him that he needed to get a life. And he said that just affected him in such a big way, and that it changed his opinion of me and all this stuff. And I was like, it totally floored me because I had no memory of ever saying this to him. I didn't even think I was capable of doing something like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that was just that was a different person that I'd become in that situation. That was just one of those things that I was doing. I don't know.
Obviously, you didn't say like, "Oh, get a life." You weren't talking down to him.
I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, he made it seem as if we were just talking, having a conversation. I was like, yeah, mate. Or he said like, I'm not happy or something with something that's going on. I was like, yeah, well, that's because you need to get a life or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'd have
so
to.
He didn't perceive it as you talking down to him or like just being an ass.
Well, I think he did. I think he did take it as if me being an ass towards him because I think it really made him not like me for a while.
Really?
Yeah. That was something that I talked about later. I was like, I profusely apologize. Like, I have no memory of it, but if you're saying I did that, then I'm so sorry. I never should have done that.
I wonder if I said something to him. That's why he just like disappeared. Because he moved out this way for a while.
Yeah.
And we hung out sometimes, and then all of a sudden, gone. Mm-hmm. And the first time I heard from him was whenever he texted me the other day.
Yeah, as you go through your life, you find yourself going through stages, and maybe you just... some of those things you block out because you don't have any good memories of them.
Yeah, that's a lot of my childhood. That's gonna be a standalone episode.
Yeah. Sure, you don't want me to sit here and hold your hand through it?
Yeah.
Walk you through it. And I could be the little Freudian guy that sits over here and tell me how you really feel.
Creeping up on an hour, man.
Are we? I haven't even gotten in my notes yet.
What?
I'm just on.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't want you to pick me.
I got some notes.
This is about you, bud.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me. My questions for Joe.
Oh boy.
I even got it right down. Questions for
We'll
Joe.
do some questions for Joe. That's fine.
You talk about your thoughts, and I know you don't like have a lot of these thoughts on suicide, but you have mentioned them. Okay. So, what are the thoughts that lead to those thoughts? Like, are there triggers that lead you to those suicidal thoughts, or are they you just out of the blue you just think about it?
It could be anything. It could literally be anything. It could be one of those panic attacks that I spoke of, where I realized that am I stuck in some weird loop where I'm doing the same thing every day, and I just think, oh well, suicide. I'll just kill myself and I can rest. I'm done. And it's just like that. And
so it's not like a depression thing kicks in where you suddenly feel bad about who you are and what's going on. It's just
sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does. I feel bad about myself. I feel bad about. This is something that I'm going to dig into even deeper later on in another episode. But there are moments that I will do things that remind me of my biological dad. And I either get very angry or very depressed about it. Like I get very, very, very sad and get in a really deep hole, and I'll stay there for a little bit because I don't want, like, I'm so strongly not wanting to have an ounce of his influence over me. It's tough, and there's things where this is another thing that I talked about with my therapist at the time. I would sing it in the car. Everybody does that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very common thing.
Yeah.
But I would get pissed off at myself because he used to sing in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I would catch myself doing it and going, why am I doing of his actions,
So now even positive reactions, you're still relating them to him.
Mm-hmm.
But since you have such a negative towards him, it's, I don't know, that's tricky.
Yeah, it's messed up, huh?
Yeah, because, no matter how bad of a person he is, I'm sure he still did some good things from time to time. Maybe not to you, but, like,
definitely not.
He started another family at some point.
Oh, he started a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, he likes to find a recently made widow.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's his little hobby. He goes finds little.
Yeah, he does. He
I'll
goes
take care of you.
And yeah. So tell me about that insurance money.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I noticed after his last marriage and the last falling out was that every woman that he marries, except for my mom, because they were 17 and 18 at the time, are a widow.
Yeah.
They had their husband recently die, and I'm like, actually, I had to ask.
Recently died?
Like within years,
Really?
a couple of years, yeah. And so I had to ask my mother-in-law about this because she at one point was a widow.
Mm.
Do you stop being a widow once you get remarried?
You've been widowed.
Yeah.
But I don't think you refer
You wouldn't
yourself
still
as
refer to yourself.
Yeah, because then now you're married again, so you refer yourself as married.
But I was so clueless. I asked her, I go, are there guys out there that would do that? That would, like, seek out, like, open up the paper. Oh, look at this. So-and-so died.
Or go to those widow support groups and just hang out in the back and look at people.
Just because the insurance money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, that's probably what he's up to. And
he's always one of those looking to make a buck kind of thing guys, isn't he?
Yeah. That's one of the things. Like my stepdad, who I am actually close with and consider him more of a father. It's pretty much my only family, really. That's not my created family, but it kind of bugs me, and I don't have the heart to tell him. But it bugs me whenever he's like, "There goes Joe, he's wheeling and dealing and stuff like that." I'm like, "Oh, fuck, that sounds like Scott." So Scott, who is my dad, I don't care about naming him. Fuck him.
Was he the one that we went fishing with that one time?
Yes.
That was your real dad, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that remember that traumatized me. They killing those turtles.
I don't remember killing
Poor
turtles.
ass turtle. No, we didn't. They did.
Who
You don't
did?
remember that?
No.
It was like this competitive fishing. So there's like all these people out there fishing, and then the turtles would eat the bait. So they would go. They think they got a catch. So they would reel it in. It'd be a turtle, and so they'd pull that turtle across. They would pull out its head. They'd chop it off with a knife and toss the dead carcass of the turtle back in the lake. They did it like 5 or 6 times right in front of me. And I was like horrified. Like, what the hell?
I don't
what are
remember
these
that
people
at
doing?
all.
They're like, yeah, they eat our bait, so we have to kill them. So they stop eating our bait. It's like, they're fucking turtles. How are you going to kill turtles?
Well, I don't think you can get the hook out once it's in.
No, they did. They took them off. They were eating the bait. The hooks weren't in them.
Oh.
They were just chomping down on the bait.
So
Because they put like these big pieces of bacon to bacon.
So they were holding on to the bait as they pulled them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they would kill them. Yeah, and if they saw them, like if they fell off the hook and they would chase them down, grab them, pull them out, kill them, and then took.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was horrifying.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was him. That was him.
Yeah. So yeah, I have bad memories of your dad too. So yeah.
No, and see what sucks. Like, no, I'll save this for another one. I've got plenty on that topic.
Okay, well, on the topic of your dad, let me ask you this.
Okay, and this is after this, we gotta close it up. Yeah, because
okay, have you ever thought about the idea of forgiving him?
Yes, and I have.
Have you?
Multiple times, and most recently on the idea of my therapist, I wrote a letter, but I haven't sent it, and I probably won't ever send it because it's a really aggressive letter. But yeah, I have forgiven him. I mean, you've known me long enough to know that he's come in and out a couple of times.
Yeah.
We have falling outs and then get back together. And generally it's in between marriages for him. And whenever he starts his new family, that's whenever I become unimportant. In this case, I told him, I said, the last time I said, if you pull that shit, then me and my family are gone because we're not going to play the game.
Right.
You did that with me. You're not doing it with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
You're either in or you're not.
And he chose to.
He chose to go with the other family.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because I feel like if you have this pent up anger towards him that you always associate with all these things in your life, then that's probably not really ever going to change until you can find a way to not be angry at him anymore. Mm-hmm. Not make those
it's
equations.
a lot less than it was. Whenever, probably 8 years ago or so, it was bad, where I would notice every little thing. The past 5 years or so, since I finished, not finished, but since I went to therapy and got a little bit more idea on what's going on there, it doesn't affect me as profoundly, but sometimes it does, especially if it's something that has to do with the kids. Luckily, nothing like that. Because like him, he would get angry, and like even it didn't matter if I was a kid or if I was an adult. He was trying to challenge me to a fight. And if I was a kid or an adult, I reacted the same way. I would start crying because this is my dad. Because that was another thing. My mom fucked up, and whenever I was really little, told me what a great guy he was. And I mentioned this in another podcast, talking about what a great guy he is. But in reality, he's running from the law because he's got warrants in whatever state he's in. So, I mean, throughout my childhood, I'm thinking about this guy is so great.
Yeah.
So that's why I kept forgiving him, and that's why, I kept giving him chances.
Which I don't fault your mom on that, really, because I think that's your role as a parent whenever one of the other parents, because you don't know when that other parent's going to come back into their life, and you don't, if they choose to come back into your life, you want them to have a good relationship, especially if it's genuine, if you believe it's genuine. So, yeah, you don't want to destroy the reputation of one of the other parents to your child without knowing for sure.
I can get that. And she had told me later on, like, she felt bad about that.
Yeah, but she was probably just optimistic that maybe he would get his shit fixed up and he would come back and actually be a good dad.
Yeah.
She was just hopeful. And that's why she tried to keep him in a good light in your mind to foster that so that when he did come back...
Well, I mean, what kind of scumbag is going to sit there and badmouth the other parent?
Yeah, especially
like,
to the
no
kid.
matter what. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure she probably talked shit about him to everybody else all she wanted, but
it raised some expectations for me. But like I said, that whole thing is going to be a completely different podcast episode. Same podcast, different episode. Let's go ahead and
you want to wrap it up? All right.
I
had so much more on my notes. Wait,
we can do another one.
You want to do another podcast sometime?
Oh, definitely.
Next time, come to my house.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Cool. Well, thank you, Chad.
You're welcome.
All right, and there you have it. That is what most likely part one of my sit down with Chad. We've got about 20 years of history. It worked out. I do want to apologize for the back 30 minutes or so of the podcast where there were the snaps and crackles and pops. Breakfast cereal, really? Anyway, I apologize for that. Expecting a new mic in on Friday, so by the time I record the next one, there shouldn't be any issues. I don't know what's causing this issue, but I'm fixing it. So, thanks again for listening. Stay well. Stay happy.
Ah.